Every challenge coin holds a story. The unit, the deployment, the handshake it was pressed into your palm with. But stories fade unless someone saves them. Allcoin lets you digitize your coins and the stories behind them, a lasting record of what your service meant and who you served it with. Preserve your story free at allcoin.brav.co because your service is worth remembering.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Project Veterans Voices. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and today we're having a veteran story. Can't wait to get into this one. But if you're enjoying these podcasts, then make sure you go hit up the website. That's the Lost Art Project, veteransvoices.org. Go check us out, see what we're all about. We are a new nonprofit, so if there's any way you can help us, it'd be much appreciated. Big shout out to the Till Valhalla Project out there doing some amazing things. If you don't know anything about them, go check them out. Even if you do, go back and check them out again. They're always putting out new stuff. You can find them at tillvalhallaproject.com. And as you saw in that commercial, that's right, we are giving out a digital coin thanks to Allcoin. Everybody that comes on the show will get this digital coin. They'll be able to go onto the Allcoin site and see that as well. Anyways, it's a pretty cool deal, so I'd go check them out, allcoin.brav.co. And don't forget, the Marine Corps League has veteran service officers. So you can go check them out. You can find them at mcleague.org, VSO locator. That's 703-207-9588, extension 299.
Are you a Marine veteran? Are you missing that bond you had on active duty? Then I have a place for you. Join the only congressionally chartered Marine Corps Veteran Service Organization, the Marine Corps League. Get that brother and sisterhood back in your life. Become one of the fewer, the prouder, a Marine Corps League member.
All right, we are back, man. We got Dr. Charles M. Russo here with us. I'm excited, Navy veteran. But how you doing, Charles?
Hello, great. Thank you very much for having me on. It's an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited about this. It should be a good time. So hopefully you're ready.
I am.
All right. Well, let's start at the beginning. Where did you grow up? Tell us a little bit about that. And then eventually, what drew you to military service?
Oh, wow. I grew up in Northern California, the Sacramento area.
Okay.
And it was, I went to all the way up through junior college there. And while in college, I had a roommate that was murdered. I know, sounds
Wow.
Was a tragedy and everything. But, being 20 years old and working part-time jobs and just that party atmosphere of, really no direction in my life.
Right.
I had one of those moments of going home and the morning that, the tragedy happened and my mother, of all, you can always count on your mom, right? And
that's right.
Mom took me out to breakfast. It was, like 6 o'clock in the morning. And there we were having breakfast and having that conversation of what are you doing? Where are you going? And my father really was that behind the scenes. He was a Army veteran, Vietnam era, early 1960s. And, he always thought that if I was not going to finish college, that I should do the military. I never really thought about it. And my mom, we were sitting there and really were having that conversation, a really difficult conversation. And lo and behold, as where I was sitting in the restaurant, my mother's back was to, of course, the armed forces recruiters in the strip mall. Um,
Nice.
but it was one of those endearing talks
Yeah.
that really you had to take a stock of your life at that moment.
Hmm.
Like, here's one of my best friends, my roommates, gone.
Hmm.
And that real, like, what the heck am I doing? And it didn't take a parent to tell you that. And so I didn't just blurt out, well, I'm going to join the military. It was kind of like almost that it's there in front of me. I need to
Yeah.
take it. After breakfast, going to the car, I just said, let's go have a talk. And we went down the strip mall. The Air Force wasn't even in yet. The uh, the Army was not yet open. We could see
Okay.
the individual inside. My mother was just like, "No, your dad would. Your dad would, while he was proud of his military service, he would say, stay away from the Army." Totally blurted out, "You are not joining the Marine Corps."
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think she also knew I was not that kind of an individual.
Yeah.
And she definitely laughed at the Coast Guard because she was just like, "Nope, you are, yeah, there's better things." But and it just was a conversation. It wasn't like pick and choose,
Yeah.
check in the box. It was a very casual as we're walking. But lo and behold, here's a first class petty officer standing outside having a cigarette that I was just like, and he was wearing his Johnny Cashes.
Okay.
So the full black, not the Cracker Jacks, but just the full
Right.
black tie and all that. And I was like, that's kind of cool looking. Uh, so he was just like, "How are you today? What are you doing?" And I just said, well, would you want to talk to me about service? What can I don't know my options. He's like, "Yeah, if you really want to. Do you have anybody else in mind?" I'm like, "No, we just kind of, where my mother and father," I said, "I'm 20 years old, but I still take their advice. I just don't know what I want to do." And so he come on in, had me take the ASVAB,
Wow. Okay.
stuck me in the little room, and it was like 7:15 in the morning.
Yeah.
He was in very early, and took that test. And while I was taking the test, of course, my mother out there having a conversation, she told him I was a music major all through
Okay.
high school. I mean, piano, violin, cello, double string
Oh,
bass.
wow.
Yeah. And he's like, "So I hear, do you want to be a musician?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I could. I just don't know what my options are." And so he did that real preliminary quick score of the ASVAB, and he said, "Wow, you could do some really good things, but let's explore." So we did. We talked a little bit,
Yeah.
and meanwhile, while we were talking, I had said, "Yes, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it quick," because he was explaining timelines.
All
And
right.
so he, next thing I know, that later that night, I'm on that bus from Sacramento to back then it was in Oakland, California,
Okay.
near San Francisco was the MEPS. And
Yeah.
remember, getting up early, going in, because my mother went home, got all the paperwork, and
Hmm.
he's like, "I can get you on the bus. Just give me 6 or 7 hours." And he did. He
Oh, wow.
showed up, got me in. I mean, it definitely a different time in 1990. And
Yeah.
next thing I know, we go through the whole MEPS thing and sat down with the detailer. And I, said, well, the recruiter said I could do a 2-year active duty. The rest would be individual ready reserves. And that's what I want to do. And he's like, "Well, you scored for cryptologic, operations, and intelligence specialist. You don't have enough credits for college to do anything. So you definitely can't go officer." And I'm like, "Okay, well, but that's what I want to do." And he's like, "Well, I could get you into these." And I said, "Well, only if you could. I want to leave tonight." It was kind of being facetious, but at
Wow.
the same time, he's like, "No, are you serious?" I said, yeah, he's like, well, if you want to go any of these three, we're talking October. This was July, beginning of July,
Okay.
July 7th to be exact, of 1990. And he's
Okay.
like, we're talking October. And I'm like, I am not waiting that long. Because, you just never know where life is going to take you. And
Yeah, absolutely.
and he's like, if you're serious, I could have you on a plane tonight to San Diego. Yeah, it happened. That
Wow.
night I found myself, midnight walking through the building at getting of course, get rid of all your civvies and haircuts
Yeah.
and everything else. So that was the beginning of my Navy life.
I've got to be honest, that is the fastest I've ever heard anybody, like walking in that morning and then that evening they're flying out to boot camp. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
wild.
My father was actually, he was very hurt that I didn't come home, didn't talk about it. I just said,
Yeah.
I needed to go. And again, I look back, and that was the trajectory of my life, rather than what could have been or may have been the alternate.
Yeah.
And just, yeah. And so
Wow.
I started my life on the 2-year kiddie cruise.
I like that 2-year kiddie cruise. Oh man, that's funny. Well, now when you like you flew out, what was going through your mind as you're getting ready? You're going to boot camp. You didn't do a lot of looking into it, so what's going through your mind?
I grew up in a household of my dad was always very resilient, an Italian neighborhood, or Italian household, and it was always about, he instilled the constant adversity. If be prepared to
Yeah.
always be challenged. He was one that worked very hard. He was a carpenter for most of his life, and he would never just work as a carpenter. He would do remodeling jobs. He would always have something else going on in order to support the household. I was very lucky. I had a mother who was a stay-at-home mom. So,
Fantastic.
I had that home of dad worked. And then he ended up in the early 1980s becoming a sheet metal mechanic for the U.S. Air Force. So,
Oh wow.
So again, here since the 80s, I was 13 years old when he started. And so I grew up around him within that military kind of atmosphere, because we would go visit him at work, and I would get to know individuals who were in the Air Force. And that
Right.
was kind of drew that my mom said no, she didn't want the Air Force. And so it was kind of like, where they kind of were telling me to go. But yeah, it was
Yeah.
one of those things of going through my mind. I was actually excited for it, but again, putting the mindset of where I was going as a party individual, that not going anywhere, working part-time jobs, and
Right.
having I did 2 years of junior college, and at that point, 13 credits to show. So
Yeah.
you're talking, 4 semesters, and all you got is literally just 1 semester. If you look at the report cards, they were all withdrawals, Fs, or incompletes. And if I
Yeah.
did pass, it was music. So never went the music route. And while in boot camp, I loved it. That is something, I guess, again, what my parents instilled was a lot of conformity, right? I was a punk rocker, which is kind of,
Oh wow.
in the late 1980s,
Yeah.
Mohawk in high school and everything. So, but my parents were very much about conformity, and that you had to be a team player. Like in a household, everybody has
Yeah.
their roles and responsibilities. So I kind of always felt that. And getting into boot camp, I wasn't one to rock the boat.
Yeah.
So head down and under the radar, and just kind of did that.
Yeah.
Undesignated seaman. So once I graduated boot camp, I went right to the apprenticeship school there in San Diego. Did what I think it was like 3 weeks worth of apprenticeship school, and then went to a battleship, USS
Wow.
Wisconsin. So right
So,
after boot camp.
so when you say undesignated, you went in, that means you didn't know what your job was going to be, or?
At the whim and the will of the U.S. Navy.
Oh man. Okay.
Yes.
I like it. I like it. And then so you go down, and for 3 weeks, what do you like? What types of things were you learning? What were you working on?
Oh, they did everything from knot tying to underway replenishment.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was how to paint, how to scrape paint, anything dealing technically. It's like you're a bosun mate, um, an entry level bosun mate, if you would.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
everything shipboard, DC control, damage control,
Mhm.
firefighting, that type of stuff.
Right. Wow. That's really cool. And then so it was 3 weeks, and then you're right to a battleship.
Yes, the last week that you're in class, they handed out orders,
Hmm.
and a lot of people knew where they were going because they were going to their A schools, so they were following
Oh,
on to
right.
go to their actual technical schools. But myself, undesignated, as the Navy saw fit. Now, while we were in boot camp, this is when, and so I went in boot camp in early August, early July of 1990. In August of
Right.
1990 is when Saddam Hussein invaded
Hmm.
Kuwait, and so
Right.
we were kind of, it's of course it's always the listening to the rumor mill that you're like you have
Yeah.
no clue where it's coming from, but people are like, oh, they're going to graduate us early, and we're going to go over there, and you're just like, yeah, right. No, it never happened. But my orders were to the USS Wisconsin, who
Okay.
was actually already in the Persian Gulf
Oh
by
wow.
the time I graduated and got my orders to fly out at
No
the end
kidding.
of
So
the.
did you fly to the Persian Gulf to meet up with them?
Yes, I did. Yeah, flew from San
Very cool.
Diego to back then it was Philadelphia shipyards, from
Uh-huh.
Philly out to Bahrain, and
Yeah.
waited for the Desert Duck to be able the ship to come within range for the Desert Duck. So stayed
Wow.
in Bahrain for I want to say, I mean, gosh, maybe a couple of days to a week
Okay.
there in Bahrain.
Yeah. That's not too bad, I guess.
Nah, it wasn't.
Yeah. So what was that like then? You're going fresh onto the ship. Everybody's already been out there. They know what the drill is. They know what they're doing. What was that like for you walking in first ship? You don't really have a clue.
Oh, yeah. So, back then when I received the orders and they had the Jane's publications, the ship's
Hmm.
publications, the big giant dictionaries, I remember they told you to look up where you were going. And so I looked up USS Wisconsin, and I didn't know what an Iowa class battleship was. I mean, yeah, you read the stuff that said it was World War II.
Yeah.
The Wisconsin, its keel was laid in 1941, but didn't really see a lot of service in World War II, not like the Missouri and the Iowa.
Hmm.
But you kind of go, okay, it was definitely in Korea, saw a little bit in Vietnam, and then was, of course, refitted in 1988. So it was
Okay.
one of those, the President Reagan's building back up the material
Hmm.
and of the military, and flying on the Desert Duck, which is really was a CH-53,
Hmm.
and looking at a battleship from hundreds of feet up in the air as it kind of circled, that I remember going, holy beep.
Yeah.
As a 20-year-old, and going, yeah, I think that was the moment I was like, what the heck did I get myself into?
Yeah.
They landed, you landed, you grabbed your sea bag, and, off it just was, that was in a complete haze.
Hmm.
And then within a day or two, we had a general quarters already.
Oh
And,
wow.
yeah, they were gearing up. This was November of
Hmm.
1990. So no shooting war yet. We're still about a month and a half off,
Right.
um, but settled in. And of course, yeah, I was pretty much a bosun mate. So
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty wild. Now, what was your, I mean, now you're kind of deployed in a combat zone, right? So
Mhm.
the normal day to day, I wouldn't expect that it's going to be the same when you're in a combat zone.
Well, looking back, it was kind of, you set into a daily routine.
Okay.
Especially I was in second division, which was a deck division. Um, and I was finally given actually a space,
Hmm.
which, I can go look now. It's a museum. Of course, the battleships are all museums.
Right.
And USS Wisconsin is in Norfolk, Virginia,
Okay.
down at the Nauticus. And my space looks much smaller than I remember it. But it was that, morning muster. We did everything very early because of the heat.
Hmm.
Now it wasn't as bad as while I was in San Diego, and they were out there where they were getting up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning to do a ship's routine, and then they were knocking off, by lunch, because even out in the Gulf, it was, 105, 110 degrees.
Yeah.
But again, maintaining readiness. I got to, so we had the Marine Corps debt on
Hmm.
board. So the Marines had, of course, they were about ship security,
Right.
but also because, well, we had the Tomahawks, and you just never knew what you had with the payloads of some of
Oh,
those.
yeah.
But they also were in charge of a 5-inch gun. And
Okay.
so you stayed away from that gun, seeing that they definitely were Marines and they did their drills. But as it got to be the holidays, holidays were definitely, something that was probably first ever holiday that I ever missed with a family.
Right.
You're just kind of, we've been out there for, well, at least myself, I'd been out there maybe 4 to 6 weeks, but
Hmm.
a lot of these other individuals had been out there for already 3-4 months.
Right.
Some of them even couldn't leave the Navy. They weren't allowing them to leave
Oh, like a stop
the
loss. Yeah.
stopgap or stop loss. Yeah. But then next thing I know, January comes. We were told, that we started to ramp up within a couple of days of general quarters.
Hmm.
My general quarters I was a powder loader for turret
Okay.
two. So I found myself at the very bowels of the ship, um, where the powder would come out of the magazines, and they were all compartmented. And of course, it would
Uh-huh.
come in through these tumblers, and then we would
Right.
stack them, and then they would go up an elevator to the shell deck, and so on.
Oh, wow.
When we started to actually fire, I don't even remember if it was day or night. That is where I think the holy crap moment
Yeah.
hit. That we're just not, we weren't practicing. We practiced with dummy powder bags.
Right.
But when they started rolling out and having us do the real thing, I watched other individuals, like some individuals, literally break down.
Really?
And
Wow.
we knew that we were in a shooting war, and you didn't
Yeah.
know what's going to happen. Of course,
Wow.
the chiefs down there, the first classes, they're
Uh-huh.
just like, you are below the water line. You've got 17 inches thick steel on the side. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
I think that went a long way as well.
Oh, yeah. 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 Yeah.
So,
Seeing your leaders kind of stoic in the moment and, giving that encouragement
yeah,
is always a good thing. Keep you going. So.
it was.
Yeah, wow. And this is the first time that I've heard a Navy veteran come on and talk about actually firing rounds downrange
Oh,
in the
yeah.
war. So I've never had anybody else do that. So that's very interesting to me.
Oh, yeah. That was
Yeah,
when you felt it all the way
yeah,
down. You're what, 5-6 decks below. You got to remember the battle wagons. They also very low riding as they were, and
right.
people don't realize how low below that water line it really goes. It goes down another 3 decks, and
Oh, holy cow.
yeah, there was the bilges. If you opened up the floor that we were on, you're looking at
Hmm.
literally the bilges
Wow.
below. So bad food, Philippine milk. I remember that. It wasn't powdered milk. It was in this warm. Everything was warm. But you were absolutely like, we're getting food.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. I
Hopefully
mean, there's an upside to everything. I like that. Yeah.
there is. There is. But having that, having a fire, the fire rotations, because
Mhm.
they had, if turret 2 was firing, turret 3 was at the ready,
Mhm.
turret 1 individuals were off, meaning they were either in their racks or that they were getting food. But no one was allowed on main deck when they were firing that type of stuff.
Right.
But it for a few days, you would, it could be 1 or 2 rounds an hour, or there were times that we were fighting, especially Kofji, Failaka Island. Um,
Mhm.
Matter of fact, it was, I believe, Failaka Island is the first RPV surrender. The RPV from the
Really?
USS Wisconsin, that was the first Iraqis, their Marines surrendered to
Wow.
an RPV. So, yeah, it was
Huh.
very interesting. So,
That's wild. So at this point, then you're just kind of waiting on like a fire mission, basically. At that
yep.
point, so you guys are just on the ready for that whatever fire mission comes down.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And there were times the 5-inch guns were going when the 16-inch guns weren't.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But you got to remember this: the 5-inch guns were not just naval gunfire support. Some of them, of course, they could have the frag. So
Mhm.
they were in World War II, for their development was for anti-aircraft. We had
Right.
Sea Whiz and all that. So
Okay.
yeah.
Wow. Now, when the guns would fire, I always think back to like watching a movie and, how the ship would rock because of the firing. Now, did that actually happen? Is that a thing that happens? No?
No, no. Everybody loves to think that, if all 9 guns went off at the same time, it would roll. That one, it would, you got to think that there's no way they're ever going to fire a salvo of
All
all
right.
9 at the
Yeah.
same time. You got to think from an engineering standpoint. You don't want to break your
Yeah.
welds and all that kind of stuff. So and then when you look at any of the overhead photos of while
Mhm.
1 or 2 guns are going off, it's the shock wave, but
Oh,
it is
right.
jarring when it happens, and it's very quick
Mhm.
when it goes off, because I
Well,
mean,
I mean,
you look
you're
at
you're right there on it, or underneath it, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
Wow.
it's loud, um, especially that far down, but you got to think of, again, engineering, the water is taking up the much
Right.
of the shock. So,
Mhm.
um,
Wow. That's
but
very
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Wow. Now, and how long were you guys engaged at that point? Like, actually, fire mission?
I mean, the shooting war was only what, 3 days long.
I believe so.
Um,
Yeah.
so it was within 3 days we were done.
Yeah.
We were
Okay.
done. Yeah.
Wow. That's very interesting. So at that point, then, okay, the shooting war's over. Does the ship leave like right then? Do you hang out in the area? Like, what was the routine
Yeah,
then?
we were back to Norfolk, Virginia by early March.
Oh, wow.
So we departed probably within a few days to a week after the shooting war ended, because also the USS Missouri, our sister ship, was in the Gulf. I think they stayed a little bit longer, but we left because, again, the Wisconsin had already left port for its regular med cruise,
Oh, right.
and they were just told to hold. And then when the powers that be said, nope, you're going to the Gulf, they extended. So it
Oh,
was, I
wow.
remember the captain saying, we're going home. We didn't do any ports of call on the way home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, went right back through the Red Sea, right
Hmm.
into the Med, and straight across the Atlantic, and got home. So,
Wow.
and that, of course,
That's
that still took weeks.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. Well, that's a quick return though.
but it is.
Um,
It is.
yeah. Now, did any of you guys have trouble like when you came back? Right, you were just at a shooting war, you were shooting stuff off, and now you're back. I know a lot of times people that's a hard transition. Did you guys have any issues with that?
I did not.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely I did not. It was within, well, on our way home, they had also said we're decommissioning. So
Oh wow.
I don't think, because we didn't, I mean, there was once or twice we had to go to general quarters. We had to get gas masks on.
Mhm.
That was very interesting. For me, that's a word. That they would. There was one time of what they thought was an incoming missile ended up being a low flying F-14 that
Oh
didn't
wow.
have its identification friend or foe on, or it was malfunctioning. When they're counting down the impact, to say brace for impact, and you have all hatches are closed. You're a condition William or condition X-ray, sorry, that it was everything locked down, and then they tell you, brace for impact. I never really felt like I had would say PTSD from it.
Yeah.
PTSD actually came way after from
Yeah.
other campaigns.
Yeah.
Because that was just the very first.
Hmm.
I think, again, when people think of Desert Shield, Desert Storm, yeah, it was over so quick.
Yeah.
Gladly not a significant loss of life on our
Yeah.
side. I didn't have to witness Highway of Death.
Hmm.
Only look at photos,
Right.
photos of Kofchi, Failaka Island, and 2 or 3 other places that we did naval gunfire support. You
Hmm.
know that, yeah, a lot of Iraqis lost their lives.
Yeah.
But it wasn't in my face
Hmm.
as much as, say, OIF, OEF
Right.
as well. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow. So you're coming back, ship's getting decommissioned.
Yeah.
You're like, man, I just got to the ship. Now they're going to decommission it.
Yep.
So what was that like?
That was like, where the heck am I going? Because of course it's no information, and everybody's like, I was one of the last ones on.
Yeah.
There were a few of us that, we arrived at the same time, and we were all E2s, and we're like, well, what's the Navy? You have no clue how the Navy really works.
Right.
I just was all of a sudden handed orders and said, "Oh, you're staying in the area. You're going to Little Creek." And I'm like, "What's Little Creek?" And I went to my second boat. Is it a ship? The USS Papago, ATF 160 was my next boat
Okay.
at Little Creek. And it was an ocean-going tugboat. It's the auxiliary
Oh,
ocean
okay.
tugboats. So yes, any boat that breaks down out in the middle of nowhere, we're your ship that's going to tow you back home.
Wow.
Yeah, I went from a battle wagon to this boat. I think there was less than 80 crew members on board. I mean, we're talking 2 warrant officers, 2, like a lieutenant JG and an ensign, and then the CO and the XO. You had
Holy cow.
2 or 3 chiefs. The rest are E1s through E6s. And I went to the deck division. So non-combatant
Yeah.
boat, and but got to see the SEALs train. SEAL Team 2
Yeah.
was operates out of Little Creek, and we got to see
Yeah.
them fast roping every day. So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
that was
Very
a
nice.
definitely big turn of events. You
Now,
knew you were never going to see combat on that thing. So
yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. Now, what was, did you live on that ship or
yeah,
you did? Oh, wow.
lived on
Okay.
that ship. Yes,
Wow.
cramped
Okay.
quarters.
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
Yeah, really cramped. So I did that for. Well, then that boat turned around and said, "We're decommissioning."
Hmm.
So that was probably within 6 months of me being on board that boat. We're decommissioning. The executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Hottenrot, was her name, and she was. I was pulling my kitchen duty. I had my
Uh-huh.
mess duty, and when they knew they were decommissioning, that's when they, the detailers back then were still in Washington, D.C.,
Right.
right across from the Pentagon. And they
Mm-hmm.
said, for the whole ship, they were going to go up there in one day and try to get everybody's orders negotiated, of where they were going to go. And she said, I took a look at your ASVAB scores. Do you know what you want to do? And I said, you know what? I do. I want to become an intelligence specialist. And it's because while on the battleship one night having watch, in port while we were decommissioning, I stood watch, with a petty officer of the watch, who was an intelligence specialist of first class. And
Mm-hmm.
I just said, what is that? And as he explained what it is, what they did during, out in the Gulf, I was like fascinated, by it. And the XO was able to get me back then. Remember even the Marine Corps had the long distance learning course books.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Same thing. You had because the Marine Corps has intelligence specialists as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was getting those unclassified and even a confidential. They were at least able to give me a confidential clearance on board ship so I could study. She got me actually orders to the Navy Marine Corps Intelligence Training Center in Dam Neck, Virginia, upon decommissioning. So
Very
it
nice.
was middle of 1992, probably August, September 1992, that I ended up going to Nimitzi. So
Yeah. And now you stayed there on Dam Neck when you were going through the course?
I was married by then.
Oh, okay. Well, let's backtrack. We didn't talk about that.
Yeah. So while I was on the Papago, I did get married.
Okay.
And we were expecting our first child in January of 1993.
Okay.
I graduated Nimitzi a week after my son was born.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah. So I did one of, a very difficult school while married, while I know you weren't able to go home for the first so many weeks of your training.
Right.
And then finally it got to the point where they were like, you could go home. So I was able to finally, along with others who had families in the area, go home at night, and then just drive into school. But
wow.
Yeah.
And how long is that school? It's like 6 months or something.
It was close to 6 months.
Okay.
I know over years it's changed, but I want to say, it was probably May or June that I went. And then by August, September, I was able to start going home. My wife at that time was, 5-6 months pregnant, and, they're trying to be there for all the doctor's appointments and such, as well. So,
that makes it that much more interesting during your schooling when you're having to do that.
It was. And there were times, you when you fail a test and they bring you in front of the panel, usually a panel of your instructors that cannot remember. It was a female chief. I remember I had failed my second test, and she was saying that, you're going to retest, but if you fail that, you understand you're out of the program. And the Navy at this point would not continue my orders and the contract. I would revert back to my original contract, which technically I'd be out.
Oh,
2-year kiddie cruise.
Yeah.
There's nothing like reality hitting you of, I really do need to ensure that I don't fail anything from here on out. That was one of those speeches from a motherly figure, but also an authority that you need to really buckle down. Think of all the things you could lose.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
And yeah, I do remember that. And that was a huge impact
Mhm.
of what we were learning. And
Holy cow.
yeah,
Wow. So, so your wife, you said she had the baby, what was it, a week after? Is that what you said?
a week before. So my
Before
son was
graduation.
born
Okay.
on January 3rd, and we graduated January 7th.
Okay.
And I had orders before Christmas. This is another kind of crazy little bit of the story is they handed out orders. They knew you were
Mhm.
getting ready to graduate, and my first orders were Naval Investigative Service, Hawaii.
Oh, that's not
Yeah.
too bad.
And yeah, it was like, oh my gosh. But then, according to talking to people, they were like, how expensive Hawaii is.
Oh, yeah.
And all I can think is, wait, I'm going to have a baby and I'm going to have a wife, like how being new and not
Yeah.
having, I still say new after almost 3 years of being in the Navy, but how do you navigate that? No pun
Right.
intended, but how do you navigate the world that you don't know? I
Mhm.
went from one ship to another and I was single and, here you had somebody just giving you papers and saying,
Yeah.
here, go. And everything else is handhold.
Mhm.
You just check in and you're good. And they show you a bed and you're like, that's good. Show me where to eat and I'm good.
Yeah.
Very different. But again, I do remember the chief, her stepping in and another shipmate, he had orders to Naval Investigative Service at the Navy shipyard in Washington, D.C.
Oh, so,
And
okay. So just up
she
the road
just,
then.
yeah, it's so she negotiated the deal of we were just going to swap orders.
Yeah.
He was like, "I'll go to Hawaii,"
Yeah.
and I
Twist
was
my
like,
arm.
"Well, I'll stick here stateside." Um, and that had to have been a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
That shipmate and we haven't probably communicated in a decade, but we did keep in touch. Petty Officer Smallwood. See, we remember who we served with, right?
Yeah. That's right.
And because that wasn't, once we went our separate ways with our new orders, it wasn't like we no longer talked. It ended up being that because we both worked for Naval Investigative Service and where I worked at headquarters for NIS, but the day I checked on, they officially changed their name from Naval Investigative Service to Naval Criminal Investigative Service. So
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, that was the first. I remember that day that the CO, the admiral, had already been relieved of his command, I guess, weeks before. They were
Yeah.
waiting for their first civilian director of NCIS. So
No
when
kidding.
I checked on with the XO Marine. And yeah, it was the
Wow.
executive officer was a colonel,
Uh-huh.
Marine Corps colonel. So it was,
Wow.
again, something lived history and experiences,
Yeah.
if you will. So
That's really, really interesting. 'Cause I was going to ask you about that. Is NCIS and NIS the same? But you answered the question for me. So thank you.
yeah. Well, I have to do my history right.
That's right.
But yeah, it was now NCIS was a whole new experience in and amongst itself. I went
Mhm.
to the Counterintelligence Directorate,
Okay.
and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to do counterintelligence." No, because that's what it was on the orders, but it was the Anti-Terrorism Alert Center. We all now know
Oh,
it over the last 25 years as the Multi-Threat Analysis Center, only
right.
because of the TV series NCIS.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
Yep, and it wasn't after 9/11 until after 9/11 that they changed the name, but back then it was the
Mhm.
Anti-Terrorism Alert Center.
No kidding. Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, now what was that experience like? I mean, because we all see the TV show, we all get to see what happens there. What was your
Yeah.
day-to-day interactions?
Day to day, so it was a watch floor that I was on. You automatically do 18 months on a watch.
Okay.
And so I checked on board in mid-January 1993, and I didn't leave until October 1996.
Oh, wow.
So that was actually, it was a really long tour, if you will.
Yeah.
But day to day was a watch. You stood watch for 12 hours, either from 6:30 in the morning to 6:30 at night, or 6:30 at night to 6:30 in the morning.
Right.
I so it was one enlisted. There were a couple of us that were E3s. I made E4 soon after I got there.
Hmm.
And then I even made E5 while within NCIS within those years.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, I pinned on E4 and E5 during the almost 4 years there.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
stood watch with a officer. And I
Hmm.
was also very lucky. I had a wonderful mentor, Gunnery Sergeant Drum,
Okay.
master gunner. He ended up becoming a top, and after,
Yeah.
because we manned the fraud, waste, and abuse, as well as the espionage hotline for the U.S.
Oh, no
Navy,
kidding.
we had to have a counterintelligence agent on staff, and the Marine Corps is the only one with a counterintelligence billet for the Navy, really.
Wow.
It wasn't an NCIS agent. We had almost no NCIS agents on our floor.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of like what was that. It was almost all civilian intelligence analysts,
Right.
as well as U.S. Navy intelligence specialists. There were a couple of first class and chiefs who
Hmm.
were sprinkled throughout the watch floor.
Right.
And yeah, there was another side that was the counterintelligence directorate, and they are the ones that had the special agents
Oh, I
in.
see. Okay.
So the Anti-Terrorism Alert Center was all the intelligence. This is now the same floor that Jonathan Pollard, in the 1980s, he had worked at.
No kidding.
Yes. So
Wow.
he's ONI, but that's what it was. In the 80s, it was ONI, was doing the anti-terrorism. But yes, Pollard was part of our directorate, and
Wow.
I do remember that his first one of his first parole hearings was coming up, and a lot of the civilian analysts were getting interviewed due to the fact that, well, they
Oh,
worked with
wow.
him during the time he was doing his espionage.
Right. Holy cow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they basically had to interview because of what they saw or
Well,
potentially
they
saw.
interacted with him. They went to
Yeah.
meetings with him, and what did he, what did he access? Who did he talk to? Did they ever
Holy
see
cow.
anything? So,
That's
because the Navy
wild.
was gearing towards trying to keep him in prison while he was up for parole. So,
Right.
yeah.
Jeez. Wow.
Yeah.
That's an interesting time to be there for sure.
It was
Yeah.
just before. So, like late 1992,
Uh-huh.
Harrison Ford had come to NCIS as part of Clear and Present Danger, or
Oh,
Patriot
okay.
Games.
Oh,
Patriot Games.
okay. Yeah.
And so I got to hear all about his the production team and Harrison Ford, how nice he was, and you're like, oh my gosh, I just missed it. But then to find out that in 1995, Steven Seagal did a visit to NCIS as part of Under Siege 2.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
So if you watch the movie, you'll see that they have in the background, when the admiral is talking to him, that he's on
Uh-huh.
in the phone booth on a train, that he's got the little fax machine.
Yeah.
He came there for all the toys, all the bells and whistles, and you can see when the admiral is talking to him, it says ATAC, but they never really say what it means, that it's the
Yeah.
ATAC. They just love that it was the ATAC.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So a little
That's
bit of
pretty
Hollywood
cool.
in there. So,
Yeah, you got to do it all, man.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty cool.
But going back to your original question, the day to day was we were charged with watching message traffic.
Hmm.
We were, it's protection of U.S. Navy and Marine Corps assets worldwide. It was indications and warnings. So did
Mm.
we see anything that would be of harm to any of our assets worldwide? You would read through signals intelligence, communication intelligence traffic to see, are there any terrorist organizations that were planning some kind of an attack? And I mean, I studied several groups like the IRA, Provisional Irish
Okay.
Republican Army, the Islamic Jihad,
Hmm.
and as well as some of the other Middle Eastern terrorist organizations at the time that were big in the 1990s. Uh,
Right.
I mean, this is all pre Al Qaeda. Just before I left, of course, when Osama bin Laden had issued his very first fatwa in 1996, and
Hmm.
that caught, of course, our attention. So from the very early days as the base, rather than just saying it was always Al Qaeda, we just kept, well, what was the translated name? The base. So that's,
Huh.
yeah, very different world.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
very interesting. That's a thing that not everybody gets to see the behind the scenes on,
yeah,
and everybody thinks, the Intel world is like glamorous and you get to go do all the cool stuff all the
yeah.
time. And it's just like any other job. That's not always the case.
True. Very, very true. I mean, April 1995, Waco, the federal
Hmm.
building, and not Waco, geez, Waco, the 1993 bombing, of course, of the World Trade Centers happened
Right.
all on our watch. But it
Oh
was
my
the
gosh.
Oklahoma City bombing that was
Right.
probably one of the biggest during my time there. That when that happened, I was on watch, and we to have the watch floor kind of spin up, but also analysts who the Navy didn't have a big. It has everything was combatant command supported, so
Right.
people were broke into. Well, we really kind of had hands off when it came to US. I mean, that was part
Hmm.
of you only had the Americas branch, and I think it was only one or two analysts,
Oh wow.
civilian analysts at that from the Navy side, like, okay, it was all hands from the intelligence community, like, who could have done this? Was this a international terrorism event? Um,
Hmm.
but I knew, for a couple of days that we had to break up watches of so and so's been pulled. You're going to end up pulling an 18-hour watch because then so and so's coming in will tell, and that was
Yeah.
something very different. But it wasn't, yes, the glamorous. It was sitting in front of a computer, one computer screen, and it was black and white, or really green and black.
Oh yeah,
We
yeah,
still
yeah.
used the 5.25-inch discs uh,
Woo.
for message traffic, and you still had to go print off, and then you had to go to a typewriter and type the top secret, the caveats,
Nice. Yeah.
and then you could take it down hard copy. So very different
Uh,
time frame. So
wow.
yeah,
Yeah. People don't think about that too much either.
no,
That's not something
no.
that that people nowadays even understand. Really,
Yeah, that is true. It's having grown up on the very beginnings, because I
Hmm.
personally bought my first computer off of a shipmate there. It was a 286 computer,
Okay.
that AOL 1.0. That was the catalyst for
Ooh, yeah.
getting the disc at a computer store and saying, well, I want to do this thing, but I don't have a home computer. And yeah, dial up and everything else. So,
Yeah.
to here we are now. I mean, I've got 5 computer screens. I've got my agentic AIs working on everything. Very, very
Yeah.
different world, even within the intelligence world, having
Oh God,
worked
yeah.
with and for almost all of the intelligence agencies, from DIA, FBI, CIA, that
Yeah.
watching us grow as analysts, it's stuff still isn't sexy. It's I think a lot more than what other people will really think about.
Right.
It takes a rather large village when an operation is going to happen.
Mm,
It's not like
yeah.
the movies where it hinges on one person.
Right.
It is, dozens and dozens of people in on stuff, and you're bringing in all these other agencies, and a lot more lawyering. By the time I
Yeah.
left the Intel community as a whole in 2019, is really when I left the agency, and it was a lot more of, well, let's have this go through general counsel before we
Yeah.
do anything, before we let this go. You were already working with other countries, but again, it wasn't this high speed, fast paced, sexy, bondish, work.
What everybody thinks about. Yeah, that's what
Everybody
everybody
thinks
sees in pictures. Yeah. That's funny. So, and you said you spent how many years up there? It was 4 years?
almost 4 years. Yeah.
Okay.
From January 1993 to October 1996.
Okay. Wow.
So, and then, actually went to San Diego, back out to San Diego
Oh,
to
okay.
Commander Sea Control Wing, the S3 squadrons.
Oh,
So
okay.
those were we called them the Hoover vacuum cleaners. Because they were the sub hunters of the Cold War.
Okay.
So with the
Okay.
Cold War now having been over for a number of years, the Sea Control Wing, we had 5 squadrons underneath us, and as the intel individual, we weren't doing intelligence necessarily. The non-sexy stuff of I was a special security officer, so I took care of the security clearances
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
And then I did the NATOPS manuals, the Navy Aviation Training Operations, for the S3 squadrons. But then we also kind of farmed out. It was myself as an E5. I had an E6, and I had a lieutenant commander. We were the intel shop, but we really were the librarians and the holders of the security clearances. We did not do any kind of operational or strategic intelligence, or even tactical for that matter.
Yeah.
Just kind
Now,
of, housing, if you would.
Yeah.
in
Now,
San
did you
Diego.
guys work in like a secure area, like I don't know. For us, it was like a closet. Somebody would be in a closet or something.
It was a little office. It was building 1, which, believe it, my son didn't necessarily follow in my footsteps, but my son is a logistics specialist. He's a petty officer, 2nd class, just made 1st class.
Nice.
Last week found out that he made 1st class. So
Very cool.
But he was stationed in San Diego as well, and actually on North Island. So I asked him about the building that I had once worked in, that he remembers being a little kid, 3, 4, 5 years old, that he remembers. And he said, "Oh, it's all boarded up because it all had asbestos." I'm like, I couldn't imagine that.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But our buildings are actually, if you watch the movies about anything from, most of the Top Gun movies all have, for the U.S. Navy Pacific Fleet,
Right.
the air, that like Val Kilmer, in the last one, that he walks into the main headquarters. We're just on the other side of the quad from that. And
okay.
it was an office, but the craziest thing is we could only store up to secret. It was the U.S. Pacific Fleet, Air Pacific Fleet. They were the ones with the closet that was
okay.
but it was so crazy that we actually had that Dutch door where the top opens, the
Oh,
bottom
right.
remains closed. And I do
Yeah.
remember our lieutenant commander, when he checked on, he's like, "What the heck is this? What kind of a space that stores up to secret has this Dutch door?" And
I mean,
yeah,
he's not wrong. It is a little strange.
it really was. But that changed. You know, he was able to at least get money, put in a steel door, the XO 7 lock when that had just first come out.
Yeah.
And really upgrade that space. There were bars on the window, at least on the outside. So
Yeah.
you felt a little safe with that. But yeah, kind of interesting for that. And
Oh man.
um,
Very
so
cool.
that's
And
where
you
I left active duty, and I just ended up going reserve
oh,
right
okay.
after that. So
No
I
kidding.
left in September of 2000. I
Oh,
left
wow. Okay.
Commander Sea Control Wing Pacific. And
And
so
now
I'm
what was your plan? Like what you were leaving? So what like did you have a plan as you were leaving? What was your future hold for you?
Nope, no real plan. Which, of course, this one you can start to blame yourself, right? I had I had good mentors. I didn't have great mentors, um, but my wife at the time had said, well, you know, her family really lived in Oklahoma, outside of
Okay.
Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it was, you know, family. Um, let's let's move there.
Yeah.
Lots of family promises of support and help, and that I could, with my background, I could probably do a lot. Really a difficult time once we did move out there. I did end up becoming a correctional officer at a
Okay.
so sorry,
That's all
medium
right.
security prison, of all things, and
Yeah.
did that for a while. Um, but I was in the selective reserves at that point. So
Okay.
I did a lot of that as well.
So
Um,
you that was the whole thing go in on the weekend or 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks
yep,
out of the year. Yeah, okay.
yeah, and that was actually a drive down to JRB Fort Worth. So I had to drive
No kidding.
all the way down to Fort Worth, Texas, from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Well, that's a pretty
And
good
of
jaunt
course,
too.
yeah, and so doing my background, bringing in background from, uh, they were like, "Hey, you could help with security clearances." So, uh,
Nice.
yeah, but it did. It started to kind of morph into, and it did. I became a contractor for the Defense Department doing background investigations.
Oh, no kidding.
And
Wow.
so I worked for like 3 different companies, as well as doing correctional officer work for the state of Oklahoma. Um, and so I was able to kind of keep that up, and it did. It morphed into much more. Ended
That's
up,
really awesome.
yeah. So it opened doors,
Hmm.
opened so many doors that one of my reserve coworkers worked actually in Washington D.C. and flew out to JRB Fort Worth during their weekend a month, and I felt like I was like, how do you afford that? But they just spent their whatever money they did get from the Navy on their
Hmm.
reserve weekends. They just put towards the next plane ticket.
Oh, I see.
But
Yeah.
they were the ones that said, hey, you know, you should do not just investigations, but did you ever want to do, since you did intelligence work, you worked for NCIS, and you've done these things, doing kind of individual dossiers on, you know, terrorists
Right.
and, you know, wannabe spies. I say wannabes because they mostly all got captured, or
Yeah.
arrested. You know, it just was very interesting that they put in a good word. And I ended up getting hired by the Secretary of Defense office, their personnel security directorate.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so yeah, that March of 2001, I actually moved to DC, moved my
Hmm.
wife and my child to Washington, DC, and started a new career path, doing adjudication for background investigations.
Wow.
And so, and it's always these little tiny things that you start to go, okay, was it boring? Day to day was my very first day, put it this way, on the job, my chief was saying, "Here's your desk. You're in a." I was an assistant, if you would. So people come in, and that I would be their first stop. And
Right.
I remember her sitting down, saying, "Here's your inbox. Here's your computer. Blah blah." But it was what was on the very top of my pile was the letter from Linda Tripp saying that she was not going to give her security clearance. She refused to sign her non-disclosure letter. So if you
Wow.
remember Linda Tripp from the Monica Lewinsky's
Yeah.
and President Clinton, that was on my desk, was the letter from her refusing to sign the NDA, which I was like,
Wow.
what the heck? And then to find out the directorate is the one that kept all the files on presidential management interns, the Defense Science Board, National Security Council,
Holy
previous
cow.
National Security Council members.
Yeah.
So over my months there, I was able to look at files that were there, it's personnel security,
Yeah.
but as you're going, these were back then, nothing was digitized. We still had
Right.
Casper Weinberger.
Oh my goodness.
Casey, not William Casey, but one of the, I can't remember right off the top of my head, but they were Defense Science Board members. They were previous administrations.
Okay.
But the Monica Lewinsky file, because she was a presidential management intern. I worked with the gentleman that did the Smith Amendment, which in 2001 was the Defense Department's policy for security clearances, that if you did hard drugs, that he was the one that penned out the policy.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, I kind of remember. It was like, wow, these are these are things that you just kind of never know reside in certain offices, if you will.
Wow.
Yeah, but then
that's pretty awesome.
We bring ourselves to, of course, the fateful day of 9/11.
Right.
And the Personnel Security Directorate was on Kent Street in Roslyn.
Okay.
And Roslyn is literally right down, 2 miles from the Pentagon. Back then it was the museum had its original office, or its original museum was right there at the end of Kent Street. And I do remember, our building shaking. We were on like the 4th floor of this high rise. And I remember the building shaking, and none of us really ever gave it much thought other than like, wow, it kind of shook. Did an elevator fall? That type of thing. But then, once it was all over the news, a lot of back then, the early footage was that from the museum camera that could pan, over the Key Bridge. It could pan Georgetown, but it could also pan over and across the Arlington Cemetery. And so finally, after 2 or 3 hours, they said, they're evacuating every government office building, because they knew that they already had other planes. They were waiting for all the planes to ground, and that took the whole day. And ended up having to walk home.
No kidding.
The Arlington National Cemetery in order to get home. And the only way we were able to do that, we walked up to the gate and they said, we're closed. We're not, even military personnel. But you had to have, they said, only if you had an active duty. Well, there are a couple of us with reserve IDs, and they said, well, we'll let you on. And of course but we're not allowing you to do anything. So we just walked through the Arlington National Cemetery, because I lived off of the 395 at Globe Avenue.
So, all right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's a pretty good walk, though.
4.5 hours to get home. Yeah, I ended up up near the commissary on Arlington, at the back end of Arlington, right where, of course, the Navy detailers, the buildings
Yeah.
that overlook, and you could see, yeah, the devastation of the Pentagon at that point.
Wow.
So,
Holy moly.
yeah, that
I
was
just to be in
sweet.
that area to see the devastation itself, that's, I mean, I saw it on TV. I can't imagine seeing it in person,
Yeah, I do remember, people, a lot of us walking. I was with, ended up being with a group, and none of us talking. Like,
Yeah.
there must have been half dozen of us. Um, and it just was the smell in the air,
Mm.
from smoke and burning, and then everything very quiet because it's Washington
Right.
D.C. Now there's no planes, even helicopters, park police. There were no military helicopters. You didn't hear a lot. It was just very quiet. Um,
Wow.
for Washington D.C. And then, yeah, walking down the 395, right there at um, Crystal City, and
Hmm.
walking down that, there's almost no cars, and what cars did, they had just flashing lights, so you knew that they were some kind of, law enforcement or something,
Right.
and but no sirens. I mean, because there was nobody on the road.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was
Holy
very
cow.
interesting.
So
So
it's almost eerie
it
to
was,
think about
it
that.
was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Holy cow.
Um,
Man. Now, and so how long was it before you actually went back into the office to work? Was it kind of next day or was it like a week or so?
No, it was a couple of days
Yeah.
before they said come back in, but it was within that same day. Later that night, I do remember my reserve unit, the chief, um, was doing his phone call muster, and then asking availability of, you know, would you be able to? Because our gaining command, my gaining command for my reserve unit, was Defense Intelligence Agency.
Hmm.
So DIA was my gaining command. That's where we did our 2 weeks, our weekends and our two
Hmm.
weeks a year. And I had just finished, actually, within probably a couple of weeks, have done my 2 week in a
Oh,
in a
wow.
European division, where I did the battle boards for some Western European countries, where I would count how many Navy ships, how many tanks, how many, and then put them into a PowerPoint so they could print them out. So they would be a primer, right? Uh,
Oh, wow.
and yeah, so it's like, that's what we did as reservists.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then they said, and so another part of our reserve unit, which I was not that part of that reserve unit cadre, was they were instructors for the Defense Intelligence College, or the Joint Military Intelligence College, as it was called then, and it was
Interesting.
housed within DIA, and so they were taking stock of, who was ready, willing, and able, kind of that forward thinking of, we don't know
Yeah.
what's going on, we don't know where, and this is so within 12 hours of these attacks. And it was almost 2 months before I was actually called to active duty. Um,
Wow.
but yeah, it was probably within a couple of days that we went back to work uh,
Hmm.
at the directorate.
Yeah.
So,
Now,
but a very
how
different
did,
atmosphere.
yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Like, what was I guess, the changes that you saw when you went back to work? Like, what was everybody doing differently that was happening?
We weren't, well, put it this way, we were not focused on any kind of work. It really was that picking apart, like, what happened, what did you see, what are
Right.
you hearing, um, and so focus. But I do know our leadership, the director, and then of course the chiefs, the two chiefs, were saying, hey, we're going to have to really be ready to adjudicate, because there are other facets of who we held. We did collateral clearances, which meant we just gave, we could give clearances to the janitors, when they needed just that public trust. So
Yeah.
you don't have a confidential secret, but it's a public trust. We only did up to collateral top secret. So any
Okay.
SCI was handled by, at that point, either your, it was a defense central adjudication facility, the CAF, did anything with SCIs. But they said, here we're going to have to be ready to take on an influx of all these people who are going to need secretary level clearances. And
Right.
we had clearances for like the railroad pension, some really weird stuff, because
Wow.
nobody would think the railroad pension has anything to do with Department of Defense. But when the
Right.
railroads during World War II, that was our freeway systems. They were all
I see.
built
Yeah.
because of how are we going to get troops and material across the United States? How do you
Yeah.
federalize a railroad? Well, it would go through the Secretary of Defense. And this is where I think a lot of people don't read
Wow.
history or read political reasoning of
Right.
when things are done. So that was kind of my first, while at this office, the first taste of, well, why are we holding clearances for the Defense Science Board? Why are
Yeah.
these individuals, why do, they're like, well, but they're the ones that they may be long gone, but they're being called upon well after they're retired,
Yeah.
to,
Well, I mean, that's a good point. I never thought about that. That's
Yeah.
but that, I mean, yeah, it definitely needs to happen.
Yep.
Wow.
So
That's crazy.
Day to day, we were just ended up, I remember kind of huddling around and not really having a lot of focus, but the leadership saying, get ready. How are we going to take an influx of cases? And I do remember them kind of saying the same stuff to me was, we know you're the front assistant, but we're going to need you to start learning how to do we're going to give you the ability to do up to secret adjudications. So for at least a month, I was shadowing an individual adjudicator on, how they look at the whole person, and they can look at somebody's investigative file and say, okay, so they had a DWI. Does that negate them from holding a secret clearance? Their financial status and everything. So,
Right.
But then I ended up getting orders and recalled to active duty myself. So, yeah.
Now, when you got recalled, where did you end up going to? Was it to Dallas, Fort Worth area? Like where?
No. So my reserve unit at DIA, I was first recalled to DIA and
Okay.
sat in a big pool with a whole bunch of other recalled reservists, and every day you would sit in this area, and individuals would call out a name and say, you're coming with me, because they just didn't know who they were going to need. One day I ended up getting my name called, and I went to, of all places, what was back then called the National Infrastructure Protection Center. The precursor to the Department of Homeland Security.
Okay.
Headquartered and hosted by the FBI.
No kidding.
So I remember going, and there was 3 or 4 military, some Air Force, more Navy individuals. The director of this National Infrastructure Protection Center was a civilian, was a Marshal, U.S. Marshal. And the XO was a Rear Admiral. And yeah, trying to our whole mission at that point was they were already working with the airlines on manifests. So they were collecting all these every day, boxes and boxes of CDs would come in. And and that's what they were having these analysts do, was upload these to a database, if you will, in order to, they were still looking at that point, who were the terrorists and were there more out there?
Right.
And, because it had only been a couple of, not even a whole 75 days since the attack. So while they had preliminary individuals, they didn't know the depth and the breadth of who else are we looking for. But then it was, back then we were looking at infrastructure as power, water, food, transportation, like 2 or 3 more. I think we had 7 infrastructures that we were looking at. So it was now we're up to 17 or 18 infrastructures.
Oh, geez. Wow.
Because they started to break them up. And one of the very first things I was working on in that office was working with NSA on cell phones that were encrypted. Very early on, encrypted
no kidding.
cell phones. So this is all pre-iPhone. This is when you still had your flip phones and your Nokia.
Yeah.
And still the Motorola. They weren't the big gray bricks, but they were definitely still Motorola's. BlackBerry had literally just.
Oh yeah, that was the new hip thing. Was the BlackBerry? Yeah.
Yeah, and a couple of other companies that have tungsten was another one. So our thing was, how do we work with companies like the railroad? Amtrak was a big one, and then all the other Southern Pacific and all these other railroads. Of how do we have individuals that we can pass, or they can pass us information on potential terrorist threats, that a suspicious object found on a railroad track was that possible sabotage. And so, it was, how are we going to give these individuals who are not intelligence people? They're not even security people. These were engineers. How do we work with them so I do remember going to the Amtrak headquarters office in Union Station in Washington, D.C. to kind of, here's the cell phones. You kind of take your pick on what you want.
Nice.
But they were encrypted, which was very interesting to learn. That I learned back then. We had high-powered cell phones. So if you remember the cell phones that not the cell phones, but the cordless phones in your house that had the base, and then you could go buy another phone, and it just, as long as it was charged, you could have a phone upstairs all by itself, and then as long as it had the base. Well, they called them high-powered cell phones, but they were the wireless, and that it was, as soon as they came out, the Defense Department and FBI outlawed them through the FCC outlawed them, so you couldn't buy these things, because if I had a base model in another state and you had a base model, that same one, as long as it was coded the same, it acted as, like, say, a walkie-talkie type system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that could be bad. Yeah.
Working that. My time at NIPC was quickly turned, because then somebody found out, because I had done background investigations and had also my time at Commander Sea Control Wing in the Pacific Fleet. I helped build out our skiff, because that's what we ended up trying to do before I left, with the lieutenant commander, who was like, we got to get rid of this Dutch door. But, the helping build skiffs within the squadrons, get them set up. They could actually store TSSCI information. And that was the interesting part of, I got taken down to the physical and technical security unit of the FBI as a detailee active duty Navy. The first thing I remember them handing me was a credit card, and they said, "You will not report here in uniform at all, because, well, you're going out to field offices, and you're going to help field offices no longer have a closet. You're going to help them put together a skiff, like a whole office complex," which I did that for about 6 months before
Wow.
I got ripped out of there, and I went to the J2 at the Joint Chiefs of Staff, where
Oh,
I
wow.
was
Okay.
an analyst for the Afghan crisis cell. So I was right
Holy
back
cow.
into doing counterterrorism, if you will.
Right.
And so there, that began a new journey as well.
Now,
So
did you go to the J2 as Navy, active duty
yeah,
Navy, or,
yep,
yeah, okay.
yep,
I got you.
yep. And I made
Wow.
E6. I put on first class petty officer not soon after I had actually been recalled to active duty. So
Okay.
I had passed the exam, found out I made first class. So that actually was nice. To one, you had a little bit more seniority, you were taken a little
Yeah.
bit more serious. It would have been great had I been a chief, but that
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
was
Well,
never in the cards for me. So
Chiefs, they run the Navy.
yes, yes.
At least that's what they always say.
Wow, they do.
Yeah. Everywhere I've been, definitely Chiefs are running things. So,
Yeah. So yeah, that was a
wow.
whole new bowels of the Pentagon. It
Mm-hmm.
was a watch floor. I soon developed my briefing skills that I became a briefer for the J2. So every morning, Monday through Saturday, briefed the admiral or the general, depending on who was at the time,
Right.
and the actual J2 for the Joint Chiefs for just Afghan crisis. So the Afghan crisis cell, we focus specifically on Al Qaeda, or
Mm-hmm.
sorry, the Taliban and the Haqqani network.
Okay.
It was at the time the Joint Intelligence Task Force for Combating Terrorism. So JITFCT, got to love all the acronyms, right?
Yeah.
They were Al Qaeda, very Al Qaeda specific
Okay.
at that time. So I
Interesting.
did that from February 2002 to July 2003.
Oh, wow.
That it was every night.
That's quite a while.
I worked the
Yeah.
night shift. Yeah. From, I very rarely, only at the beginning was I there during the day. But then once I became a briefer, I loved briefing. I got it down of that
Uh-huh.
there is an art and a science to briefing, especially very senior level
Yeah.
individuals. I got to sit in the vault twice. The vault was all the principals. So there were times the
Okay.
information was so very needed because, again, it was Taliban specific, that it needed to be briefed to the principals, which was, of course, the National Security Council.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember a couple of times in the Pentagon going to the vault and then standing in the corner of a conference room, and you see Lisa Rice, and it just
That's
was,
wild.
and the president and the vice president on the
Mm-hmm.
screen. You're just like, that is surreal. And
Holy cow.
only one time out of the 2 times I was in there was I ever called. And I do remember that I didn't even have a speaking part. It was, I handed the admiral a piece of paper because then they put the brief up and the admiral talked to them. I wasn't even allowed, but it was just, so again, it was because if there were going to be questions, you were the briefer
Right.
of that information. You were the one with that stack of message traffic, and I
Mm-hmm.
had to be the one that if there was a question that admiral could not answer, they were going to turn to you and say, and you couldn't do the ahs, I don't know, I'll get back to you, sir. it was, you better know where in that message traffic that very specific information came from, so you could tell them date, time, verse, chapter, black and white, letter. Here it is.
Wow.
So how
So
quick?
your memory had to be Johnny on the spot then. There's
Yeah. And that's what
oof.
at that point, I had some very great mentors. The J2 crisis manager was John McCreary,
Okay.
sorry, John McCreary. But he had been in the DIA since the 1960s. And
Oh, geez.
since the
Wow.
1980s, that's where he was at. He lived in the bowels of the Pentagon. His memory of events worldwide, he could tell you, and he was actually pre what they called SAFE, which was the secure computer system, and before JWICS, the Joint Worldwide Intelligence Communication System. He had stacks of message traffic going back to North Korea, back to
Holy
the
cow.
1970s. And he could tell you exactly where in that stack, within pages, he could tell you where, because everything to him was chronological.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was one of the very first mentors. And then I had a Army major who was a soft guy. He was a Team 5 guy, Reardon of all things. I mean, he's since way long retired, but he was a very good mentor, and he was one of the said, you need to memorize this stuff. You don't need to worry about all the little details. You need to memorize when you get these packets at 12:30 at night. When you go to that 5:45 a.m. briefing, you need to know that where did Mohammed talk to Omar, and at what time was it? Where was each one of their selectors discovered at? That you better not only know, Mohammed actually got the phone call from Omar. It wasn't the other way around. And Omar was in, Mumbai, whereas Mohammed was in Kandahar. And, so you need to know the
Holy crap.
specificity, because then they were like, well, okay, so do we have eyes on Mohammed's selector right now? That I had to know as of, 5:42 a.m. Yes, we knew he was still, at these lat longs. I better have known at least the lat longs of the last time that selector was pinged. So you had to work with your SIGINT collectors from NSA. There was a lot, through that 5-6 hours. It wasn't just sitting waiting for new things to happen. It was, you're on the phone with, hey, can you give me a little bit more information? Because if I get asked this, I watched a lot of my other colleagues get like, you brief that, thank you, you're out, you're done. Like a new briefer came in. So I really felt a real sense of fear. One, I never wanted to feel like a failure. But you knew what was kind of writing on all of this at the time, that, we were taking individuals out. We were trying to stop the Taliban and Al Qaeda from doing anything more. I mean, we were finding out that they were already doing chem bio research. And so you're like, did that research make its way to Washington, D.C.? So on and so forth. So, yeah.
That is wild. I mean, you were in the thick of it, through an incredibly important time. Yeah.
Yeah. It was not the head of the spear as you would think. I was that very bottom part of the staff of the spear. But yeah, nonetheless, that's where I've always felt it takes this team. There's no way I ever could say, well, I did this, but it wasn't without the help of everybody else, because I wouldn't have felt succeeded in what I had to do if it wasn't for everyone else as well.
Good point. Yeah. Man. Now, how long did you spend doing that?
Finally, in July of 2003, came into the office and to do a briefing on my shift, and there were my orders, just taped to my computer screen. And 3 days later, I checked out, went back to DIA, went back to the Navy Yard, went through my out processing and back to my life well, again, everything kind of takes a turn because nothing happened
Yeah.
one right after the other. And I'm not sure how much time we have left, but
Oh, we got time. We can schedule another if we have to. No big deal.
yeah, it was during my time at the Afghan crisis. I met another reserve. He was an Army reservist, but he was a lieutenant colonel. And to find out he was a vice president of Mantech International at the time.
Oh,
And,
wow.
it's one of those things of enlisted people, we don't get buddy with officers,
Yeah.
or at least I
Yeah,
never
yeah.
did. I never felt comfortable like I could say, "Hey, Joe, how is
Yeah,
it
yeah,
going?"
yeah.
It was always, "Yes, sir." And I do remember though, after a briefing, and having been told, and then told the senior person on the briefing team for the J2 that I'm bringing in somebody new that's going to shadow for the next 48 hours as I'm being released. That he said, "Hey, if you ever looking for something, here's my card. Shoot me your resume." And I did
Wow.
that same day. I did shoot him my resume because I wasn't sure that I want to go back. I was a GS7 at
Oh, wow.
the Defense Department, and here
Yeah.
I was in E6 making E6 pay. that was a huge disparity between like 39,000 and 50 something thousand as an
Yeah.
E6. And so I do remember shooting off my resume to him, and next thing I know, I got a phone call, did a phone interview. I did go back to the SecDef's personnel security unit probably for a couple of weeks, was offered the
Mhm.
job. I already had my security clearance. And so Mantech brought me on board, and I left, federal service, and then went to Mantech International, where they were standing up a contract under JITF CT of all places.
Hmm.
That's why I always say it's very, ironic
Yeah.
that you remember acronyms, and it's like, oh, well, yeah. But I ended up being on several contracts as a lead for like DHS's Office of Intelligence and Analysis,
Okay.
helping set up a training team that we did analytical tools like Analyst Notebook and such,
All right.
that if new analysts were coming in, how do these new agencies train as well? So I did that even with the FBI. I was a contractor for their what they called very early on their Sentinel, which was the way that they just all-inclusive case management system and
Hmm.
JWIC's email communication system. So I ended up working with or for a lot of the other three-letter agencies before. I even went down to Gitmo. I was a lead for some of our analysts who were interrogators down at Gitmo. So yeah, I kind of
Wow.
jumped around within Mantech International, doing a lot of different things and with a lot of
Yeah.
different places.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Now, what like your experience there? What was? Yeah, she made it in here. I had to open the door. It was getting hot. What were some of the experiences that you had working now? Because you're no longer on the defense side now. You're what would you call it? Civilian? I don't know.
Yeah, contractor. I was a
Contractor.
defense
Okay, now you're
contractor.
doing
Yeah.
contractor.
Yeah.
So what were the big differences for you?
The fiscal responsibilities. Because
Okay.
now, yeah, it was, being a lead. Now I wasn't a program manager. I wasn't even a deputy program manager, but it really was, hey, we're standing up these contracts. So I was on a lot of contract proposals. So I really cut my teeth on really understanding how contracting works. I mean, these are multi-million dollar, multi-year contracts,
Right.
50, 70, $100 million contracts. And that are we picking the right people?
Mhm.
And what kind of qualifications, and then putting out, of course, then I was also on the hiring and the firing side
Oh,
of
wow.
some of these contracts. So it was a different, rather than just getting in and how does analysis done, but it was really something of a challenge for myself, because at this point, this is 2003. I didn't start my my bachelor's degree until June of 2004. So I didn't have a
Holy
college
cow.
degree. Yeah, I just, at that point, I had what, maybe just about 15 years of experience,
Yeah.
and life experience at that point too.
Mhm.
That I was given some great, like I said, great mentorship. I think that it also had shown me the value of some really good leaders
Mhm.
from, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, as well as individuals from the FBI, from CIA, from the Defense
Right.
Intelligence. I had some really good mentors um, who didn't take things away from me and say, well, you don't know how to do this. No, I need you to do it. I'm going to have to help you how to know how to do it.
Yeah.
So you're going to be challenged. And of course, raising a family. By this time, I had already been divorced, remarried, had a second child during that time, who was born in the late 1980s or 1990s. Sorry, 1990s. But I also had a stepchild, so now I had three children. Also
Yeah.
a second, but and there are a lot of things. Of course, I don't say of all the different deployments that,
Mhm.
because I was attached to DIA, it wasn't like I was attached to, there were times I went out with the 3-6,
Mhm.
that I would be gone for 3 months, or that I would be gone for,
Right.
for 6 months. And you weren't attached to anything except you were an OGA, you know, so, or you were an
Wow.
ODA. And so it was like, okay, even as a contractor that, well, you don't have a service record. So it's like, we need you to go to not the greatest places in the world. I mean, some of my stuff
Yeah.
near the end was taking me to West Africa and
Oh,
Central
wow.
Africa and Somalia. And, it was like, they weren't combat tours, but you were armed.
Yeah.
You served with Navy units, Army units, foreign military units, Marine Corps, as Marine Corps support, because you were
Yeah.
a contractor and they needed
Wow.
that support. So it kind of really morphed into this jack of all trades, master of none. I know there's a lot more to the saying that doesn't necessarily mean that, but it really was like, how do you become I wasn't a software developer, but guess what? I had to work with them in order to come
Mm.
up with new contracts that they had been working on, hey, we need this kind of support to the FBI's Sentinel
Right.
program. But we need you to be the teacher on how to teach individuals within the FBI how to use their new computer system that was rolling out. Um, and the
Wow.
same thing with DHS and working with other companies on their software, that
Mhm.
how do we integrate into computer? It wasn't just one app. Back then, we didn't call it an app. It was a software package. And
Right.
yeah, contracting was very, very different as well. So
Yeah. Wow. That's I mean, you've definitely been to some wild places,
yeah.
done some incredible things. Holy moly. Uh, Now, how long were you doing the contractor stuff?
So I did contracting between that July of 2003
Yeah.
through August 2010. So when I was still at DIA, but I moved in 2007. I moved and I did human targeting for a contracting company, right within DIA headquarters, but near the front. Everybody knows, if people who watch you, definitely they'll remember the Scud missile within DIA. They actually had a Scud missile. And my elevators to my floor, that was the clandestine and the overt side of human collection. So I worked with all the human collectors.
Oh, wow.
For the case officers and operations
Right.
officers. I looked for targets of individuals that we wanted to get to that would be perfect spies for us.
Oh, I see.
So,
Yeah.
you look at Robert Clark's target centric analysis, and it's that ripple effect. We know that we couldn't get to bin Laden, but is there somebody else we could get to that could get him to
Yeah.
us, or us to them? And so I did that for almost about 3 years before I ended up leaving due to my father actually having terminal cancer. Found out in mid 2009, and I just, you made that determination of, I was already divorced by 2009.
Yeah.
I was a single father of my son, but my daughter and my stepdaughter had gone on with their mom. But family to me was, I needed, my dad's going to pass away, and I'd already been gone for 20 plus years,
Right.
only visiting when you can.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, you know what, I'm moving, and I pulled a lot of favors and asks of individuals, and ended up getting. It's California now, so they lived in Northern California, and by 2009, 2010, there was not a lot of military bases in California, let alone
Yeah.
Northern California, that
Right.
does active intelligence work. But I was able to get on with a contracting company out at Beale Air Force Base that we still had the
Okay.
U-2 spy plane, Dragon Lady
Mm-hmm.
program was still hot and heavy in both Afghanistan and Iraq.
Wow.
But also the MQ-9 Reaper was out
Oh,
there.
okay.
So I was brought on as an analyst out there, and did a lot of work with the U-2 multispectral analysis. Now, I'm not an imagery analyst, but of course, in the Navy, you had to be kind of that. You were taught
Right.
how to do imagery analysis, but that's all that we really did. But we did counter IED operations. So that
Oh,
multispectral
yeah.
analysis was looking for IEDs buried
Mm-hmm.
in the road, or daisy chained and
Mm-hmm.
such. So that was some of the more interesting stuff. I'd never worked
Wow.
for the Air Force at the time, but thrusted in. All of our leadership was Air Force. All the analysts, except for a small cadre, were all Air Force analysts. So
No
they were like
kidding.
full
Wow.
motion video
Yeah.
analysts, and got to see the, the Connex boxes out behind the main building, but that's where they were
Yeah.
flying a lot of the Reaper missions from.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was part of the distributed ground stations. So
Okay.
they were either flying them from there, Las Vegas, Georgia, or from Qatar, or
Wow.
Pakistan. And so yeah, some very interesting stuff until the FBI called, and I ended up getting picked up as a intelligence analyst with the FBI by August of 2010. So
Wow.
I know, 2 hours in, and we just made it
That's
20 years.
It's all good. Because we can schedule another one, no big deal. But I mean, we got 15 minutes. If you want to keep going, we can.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, the FBI was something totally new.
Yeah.
And within the FBI, I was brought on already knowing that I was going to be at Sacramento Division.
Mm,
And I went to Quantico, to Intel School. And of course, I got to say, my time within the Bureau, I have made lifelong friends. I still keep in touch with, here we are, 16 years later, and I'm still friends with a lot of them, even though I left the Bureau by 2016.
hmm
But I, brought on board, and at first I was a collection manager. And so I looked at all of our assets across the different programs within the Sacramento division, and what kind of confidential human sources do we have? Are they in the right places? We would grade their work. And then we would
Oh,
meet
yeah.
with analysts and agents on who run these confidential human sources to say, here's some maybe like some new strategic ways to get them to answer some questions or give us some new leads in cases or just within the threat matrix. Like,
Yeah.
we need to know what else. Where we were lacking was healthcare fraud, which was a congressionally mandated investigation need within our
Yeah.
white collar crime. So I got taken out of the collection management and put into a white collar crime squad where I did healthcare fraud, mortgage fraud.
Wow.
And this is, of course, right when the marketplace for Obamacare
Oh,
had
right.
started. And we already started to see issues with fraud, waste,
Hmm.
abuse.
Yeah.
California, where they would hire people to go enroll people out in front of Walmart or in front of a grocery store. And we started to figure out that, well, these people are hired, but they're asking HIPAA related questions, yet they're not like vetted. And then we started to see, of course, people were enrolling other people who didn't exist. And so we were already behind the eight
Mm.
ball as healthcare fraud.
Wow.
And so I did that for a couple of years. And then I ended up volunteering to become a counselor at Quantico.
Okay.
So I did that. But I mean, in between, I was crisis management response as a collateral duty. So anytime that big gang raids, we even did a raid for the Motion Picture Association when
Really?
people were still pirating CDs. They would go into
Wow.
theaters and they would have their camcorder. They would
Yeah.
and then they would burn it onto a CD. So it was kind of right after the Napster whole thing, but
Yeah.
not yet to the point that YouTube was used as the platform for pirated. They were still printing CDs. So I would sit
That's
on pole
crazy.
cameras and sit. It wasn't glamorous. People think that, oh, you're like FBI on TV. You're like, no, I'm an intel analyst, and I literally in a hot big double trailer. My whole job one time was literally sitting and watching one computer screen on a pole camera. And I just had to report, to on the walkie-talkie to the agents wherever they were on their mobile surveillance of
Yeah.
there's a car pulling into the warehouse now. And try to get the license plate on a grainy TV or on a grainy computer screen. So it's not like Criminal Minds. People all the time would go, isn't that what you did? And I'm like, there's no way I could turn around and go, I'm going to log in and look up under California DMV, the license plate. It was I see a pole camera. I see somebody I can't make out, or somebody pulling out, somebody leaving. But they ended
Wow.
up doing a raid at a flea market. They had their subjects and they went in and, but then once the raid happened, you were all done. Pack up the crisis management van, go back home.
Yeah.
We did a couple of gang raids that way. I did healthcare fraud raids that way. But
Wow.
again, nothing glamorous. It was a
Right.
lot more putting stuff together. It was the grueling tasks of writing reports and pulling information, working with other agencies, California, state, as well as local jurisdictions.
Hmm. Wow.
You never ended up in court. So again, Hollywood loves to be able to say, that you would put so-and-so on the stand. Nope. Intelligence analysts, you almost never hear them on the stand because we work with uncertainty. We work with a lot of information that, it's pattern analysis, it's crime analysis, it's
Right.
statistics. Well, no prosecutor wants you on the stand. I think that, yes, plaintiffs, defense counsel would love to get, because they could poke holes, but that's not where we're at. So again, it's the agents. They're the ones that are the case leads.
Yeah.
But it's the ones that they put together all that. But it really
Holy
was
cow.
a very interesting time. Even so, yeah. Once volunteering to do counselor, I became an adjunct faculty member for the intelligence basic, so I could do guest lecturing. I could teach classes to like Citizens Academy. We were often asked as analysts to give the briefs and the classes to any kind of Citizens Academy that the FBI, they always have it once a year. They pick like a dozen individuals from the citizens of the area, and then on certain nights of the week they would come in and learn all about certain parts of the FBI. Again, they're learning the non-sexy parts of the FBI. So
wow.
yeah. But
now,
really, again, it wasn't an individual basis. I mean, when I did healthcare fraud, I worked with the Veterans Administration and their OIG. It's hard to swallow that here are veterans that, we're looking at doctors, we're looking at other vendors, pharmaceutical companies and equipment companies. But the number of cases that were veterans who were either doing some kind of fraud, really was a personal, that you're just like, wow, I understand that we went through a lot. I was not in the thick of it in Afghanistan or Iraq, and I can't imagine what Marines. I have a lot of Marine Corps friends, and one of my best friends served in the 3-6 in Marja. And so, I can't imagine his pain, suffering. I mean, he was hit with an IED, but to sit across, and have to be part of an investigation on a veteran, but to hear their story as well of why, is a desperation. It wasn't, I think, I drew my own conclusions of it wasn't that they were doing it out of malice. It was they felt like they were owed and the system wasn't working for them. And this is 2012, 13, even 14. Those were some of the stuff that you're just like, wow, okay, that hurts your heart, right?
So, I mean, but it happens.
It does. But then you work with companies that are title companies or realtors, and they're making a couple $1 million a year in mortgage fraud or healthcare fraud, doctors doing the unbundling, upcoding, and you're just like, I just you kind of like
I'm gonna hammer you.
But then being able to give the honor of teaching, going on to the next iteration or the next new incoming analyst was a real honor and a privilege as well at Quantico. I know that we run out of time today, but I still think that if we do part 2, we could pick it up from there, because my life didn't end there.
Absolutely. Let's do that. We'll schedule another one, get you back on here, because I definitely want to hear the rest of the story. And I'm sure I have a million questions like I did today. So, so it'll be a good time though. But thanks for coming on and doing this. I look forward to having you back, and then also on a fireside chat as well. So it'll be a good time.
I will get on there too.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'll close this one out the same way I close all of them out. For everybody out there, if you're struggling, need help, anything like that, don't forget the VA does have some good resources. You can always dial 988, press option 1. You can always text 838-255 or go to veteranscrisisline.net, click on the chat icon. Any of those options will put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. But remember, one veteran life lost is one too many. I care about you. I know this guy here cares about you. The whole veteran community cares about you. So please reach out for help. And if you're out there and you're not struggling, reach out to a buddy you served with. Ask them how they're doing. If they need a helping hand, please give it to them. All right, one last time. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. To everybody out there, stay motivated. Change your socks.
Purchase your gear, look good, and support the Lost Art Project Veterans Voices. Every day, we lose another veteran, and with them, a story that can never be told again. At the Lost Art Project Veterans Voices, we're making sure those stories live on. Join our Founders Circle today, because preserving history isn't someone else's responsibility. It's ours.